They thought he was just a black and heavy man in the wrong neighborhood, but what they didn't know was that he once commanded Delta Force. Blue and red lights bounced off the windows of the Harrison home. Sirens cut through the air, sharp and relentless though there was no emergency. Sophia Harrison froze at the foot of her porch stairs, one hand gripping her phone and the other instinctively raised, as if she could shield her 16-year-old son from what was happening. Across the lawn, Elijah clutched his basketball under his arm, his eyes wide, unable to comprehend why 4 patrol cars had descended, as if he were a threat, and in the middle of it all stood his father, Marcus Harrison, a tall, broad-shouldered man, stocky in build with a limp that plagued him. The weight of so many years in combat zones. He was walking back from the mailbox when it all began. Now he was facing 3 officers who were barking orders at him, as if they had caught him in the crime. "Sir, hands on the hood now," yelled an officer with his hand already near his holster. Marcus's voice was level, but live steel lay beneath. "That's my wife, that's my son. I'm not doing anything wrong." But the officers didn't back down. Another step forward, pointing a finger at them like a weapon. "ID right now," Sophia's voice cracked in the night. "He's standing on his property. You don't talk to him like that." Her protest only seemed to enrage the officers. One of them, Officer Mack, a younger cop with a buzz haircut, raised his voice even louder, demanding Elijah drop the ball. "You hands out of your pockets." He spat, though. Elijah's only weapon was the orange basketball he now held like a lifeline. Neighbors peered through their blinds. Some emerged onto their porches, phones in hand recording. The air was thick with fear that one wrong move could turn this confrontation into something tragic. Marcus knew that fear well, but he never thought he would see it, reflected in his wife's trembling voice or his son's tight grip on his own hand. In their own front yard in Fairview, Oregon, Officer Mack stepped closer. "I said hands on the hood," he barked again, and before Marcus could respond, the cop shoved him in the chest, trying to force him back against the patrol car. Sophia gasped. Elijah dropped the ball. Neighbors yelled, and Marcus didn't move. He planted his feet, absorbing the shove like a brick wall. His eyes locked on the officer. Marcus's voice was low, calm, and measured, yet carrying the weight of command. "You are making a mistake," he said. The officer smirked, confusing Marcus's calmness for submission. "The only mistake is you not obeying orders." Sophia stepped forward with tears. "Stop it. He is not a criminal. He served this country, But Marcus cut her off with a look back away. "Let me handle this." Elijah couldn't contain his fear. His voice cracked as he yelled. "That's my dad. He didn't do anything." The words drew all eyes to the boy. For the officers, Marcus was still just a big, black man who fit a vague description from a neighbor's call. Robert Blake, they didn't see the years of service. They saw an obstacle. Marcus's mind raced. He could reveal his rank, but that felt like surrendering his basic right to be respected. As a citizen on his own land, he leaned slightly forward. His words were clipped but quiet enough to cut through the yelling. "You don't know who you're dealing with." The officer scoffed, but the truth was about to emerge. Months before, the Harrisons had moved to Maplewood Lane in Fairview, hoping for permanence after years of military deployments. Marcus had chosen the quiet suburb outside of Portland. They knew they stood out. Sophia noticed the smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Elijah was asked if he was just visiting Marcus. Ever the soldier remained measured and watchful. He saw the looks, heard the silence, and filed it all away. He had told Sophia, "We didn't come here for them. We came here for us," but patience had reached its limit tonight. A single nervous call had ripped open the facade of peace. The vague description of a big, burly guy from Blake had been enough to dispatch for cruisers. Officer Mack pushed harder, demanding Marcus comply. Marcus remained unmoving. Sophia's voice was raw. "You are harassing him. He fought for this country." Elijah stepped forward toward his father. "They are scaring my mom," he told the officers, his voice small but cutting. The rookie officer flinched, recognizing the humanity in the scene, but Mack's pride was wounded. He shoved Marcus's shoulder, attempting to force him against the car, and once more Marcus remained an immovable anchor. His refusal to yield, his sheer stillness, unnerved the officers more than any struggle would have. Marcus decided to deploy his ultimate defense. He would use the truth not as a threat, but as a nuclear deterrent. He projected his voice, the tone shifting to the undeniable authority of a high commander, one who had ordered life and death. "You do not command me, not here. Not now, not after what I've given this country." The crowd stirred, their phones held high. He detailed his credentials. his voice ringing with absolute certainty. I commanded men in Delta Force. I led missions in Kandahar, in Mosul, in places you can't even pronounce. I've walked through firefights you couldn't survive for 5 minutes. And you think shoving me against a hood is going to break me? The revelation was immediate and devastating. Mac's smirk evaporated. Keller's certainly vanished. The rookie officer's hand dropped from his holster. They were not dealing with a prowler. They were facing a man whose professional capability dwarfed their own. Mac, cornered by his own authority, made a final desperate stand. I don't care who you think you are. You follow my orders or you go to jail. Marcus's eyes darkened, his voice dropping back to a quiet, terrifying intensity. I faced men with rifles aimed at my head and didn't blink. The only reason I am still standing here calmly is because I will not give my son the memory of watching his father dragged away from his own yard. He held Mac's gaze with an unblinking intensity that only came from years of leadership under duress. You will leave tonight and you will remember that you put your hands on a Delta Force commander who bled for this country while you harassed his wife and son. The weight of the witnesses, the cameras, and Marcus's undeniable authority crushed the confrontation. Mac, defeated, gave a terse, silent order. One by one, the patrol cars slowly pulled away, their blue and red lights retreating down Maplewood Lane. Marcus watched the final patrol car disappear. He did not move until the sirens were completely gone. Sophia rushed to him, embracing him fiercely. Elijah stood next to them, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and profound awe. Dad, Elijah whispered, when you said who you were, why didn't you say it sooner? Marcus rested a heavy hand on his son's shoulder. I shouldn't have to use my medals to earn basic respect on my own lawn, son, but I had to use it to protect you from what they were doing. The confrontation was over, but the Harrisons' fight was just beginning. The next morning, the videos taken on Maplewood Lane had gone viral. Delta Force veteran harassed was the headline across local news. The police department released a terse statement, promising a full internal review, a hollow promise that didn't satisfy the community. That evening, Marcus stood before the Neighborhood Homeowners Association, facing both supporters and critics like Harold Jenkins, who suggested he should have just complied. The only people in danger last night were my wife and son, who saw 4 armed officers treat me like a criminal on my own lawn. Marcus stated, his voice calm but radiating authority. I served 20 years for the freedom to stand on this ground, without having to prove my worth. What happened was wrong, and it will not be hidden. The pressure intensified 2 days later. Marcus stood outside the Fairview Police Department. For a press conference, Sophia and Elijah stood beside him. The community needed more than a review. I want what every citizen wants, Marcus told the assembled reporters: respect, accountability, and the safety to live without fear in our own neighborhoods. Elijah stepped forward, his young voice trembling but firm. I thought they were going to take my dad. I thought I was going to lose him. I will never forget how he stood there, not because he was stronger, but because he wouldn't let them make him feel small. The impact of the boy's words was immediate, shifting the narrative from a military confrontation to a family trauma. The chief of police invited Marcus to a closed-door meeting. The next day, we regret the misunderstanding. The chief began. Marcus cut him off with the quiet force of a man who dealt in facts. A misunderstanding is when someone gets the wrong directions. What happened in my yard was harassment, and it could have been a tragedy. Your officers need to be held accountable. When he returned home, Marcus sat with Elijah on the porch swing. Were you scared? Elijah asked again. Yes, Marcus replied honestly. But not for me. I was afraid you would grow up thinking this is normal. You never let anyone make you forget who you are, son. You stand tall, the fight would continue. But Marcus knew he had won the most important battle. His son had watched him refuse to be defeated. His wife had seen him protected by his dignity. The truth finally revealed had done its work. Marcus Harrison had stood his ground, not only to save himself from a false arrest, but to ensure his son saw a black man stand with unyielding, authoritative dignity against injustice. The courage to remain unbowed was the final and most profound act of command.